Hi, and welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva. Thank you for joining us. And we have, as I always say, we have a great show for you today. And we have a young lady who, of course, has been performing all over the world, certainly here in this country for many years. And it's amazing. I think she started when she was about 4 years old. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. And she liked that. We welcome.
True. I mean, that's just it. It's true.
There you go. And I haven't even introduced her formally yet. Singer-songwriter Dodie Stevens. Okay, not to be confused with Dodie Goodman, but Dodie Stevens.
How you doing today?
Good, good. Thank you for being on the program. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Dodie, as well as her daughter Stephanie, their most recent CD that we'll hear a track from later on in the program, Outlaw of the Heart. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about her long, illustrious career and trying to learn new things about Ms. Stevens. So let's see. I always feel like I'm Ralph Edwards from the old You Bet, not You Bet Your Life. What was the name of that show?
It wasn't called You Bet Your Life?
No, that was Groucho. No.
Yeah.
What was that? This Is Your Life. This Is Your Life. Yeah. So I kind of go through a little bit of who the performer is and was. Dodie Stevens, born Geraldine Ann Pasquale. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You pronounced it perfectly.
Very good. And born in Chicago. And now, obviously, I'm sure you played in Chicago many times over the years, but you were not there that long, right? A couple of years old?
2 years, maybe 3 years, first
Yeah.
2-3 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then my parents moved to Southern California, and that's where I was raised and grew up and remained.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know if that happens as much now. You know, it was kind of like that let's move west, young man mentality. I've had several guests on the program where, they did move, at a young age, from Boston, Chicago, parts unknown. And, you always look back and say, wow, what, it really made a difference, because you wonder if you would have been doing the same thing you're doing now had they not moved west. Go west, young girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think everything happens in very much a step-by-step progression, and one thing leads into another, and if one thing was different, then this other thing wouldn't have happened. So it was all meant to be. It went down the way it was supposed to go down, so I could be in Hollywood or close to Hollywood and get singing lessons and dancing lessons and all kinds of lessons when I was just a very young girl. About 5, I think, was the first time I had my first voice lesson.
Now, I was going to ask you that. Was that something that you showed a proclivity for,
Yeah.
talent, or is that mom and dad said, well, like some parents, well, you're going to learn the piano no matter what you say, or it came natural to you?
It came very naturally, and I'll tell you how that whole thing came about. When I was still living in Chicago as this toddler, and I have an older sister, just a year older than me, I was always singing. From a very young toddler age, I was singing. And I showed a very natural talent at that young age, and I remember, I don't remember it myself, but it was told to me that when my uncle on my mother's side would come home from being in the Army on a visit, on a furlough, I think is what they called it, he would bring his buddies with him, and they'd go over to my house to visit my mother, and they'd say, come on, Geraldine, come with me. We're going to go to the corner, and there was a candy store in the corner, and I want you to sing for all my friends. So I'd go. They'd take me by the hand. I'd go with them. I'd sing whatever they wanted me to sing, whatever I was singing at the time, and they'd give me nickels and pennies, and at that time you could buy a lot of things for nickels and pennies.
Sure.
And then we'd go to the candy store, and I'd get to buy all this candy. But I just loved it. I loved doing that. I think I loved the attention, and I just really loved performing. I got my singing talent from my father, who could have been another Caruso, beautiful voice, and my performance and dance talent from my mother, who was a ballroom dance instructor.
So quite a
And
combination, yeah. Now, did your sister also inherit any of those talents?
she did not.
No.
But yet, when we moved to Southern California and all the lessons began, my sister was given those lessons as well. She did not show an interest in it, and I did. So rather than forcing her, like so many parents will do, well, you will study the piano or you will study voice, they just went, no, if you don't like it, fine, do what you want to do. I wanted to sing. I wanted to do all that stuff and remain taking lessons, and she was just a tomboy and loved to play sports and go play with the boys and play baseball and all kinds of climb trees. She just was a tomboy.
Sure. Well, again, that's
Different.
nowadays kids don't do a lot of that stuff. So that's some of that's a lost art, for lack of a better phrase. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
Now, at a young age, and I was impressed with this. I think you're the first guest performer, et cetera, we've had on the show that I can actually ask about this. Another icon in television history. You were on the old Art Linkletter House Party show, which I remember as a kid on CBS.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was. I was a guest on his show. I think I was 7. That was my first television performance when I was 7, and I sang a song called "Merry Go Merry Go Round," and I was interviewed by Art Linkletter, and I was just this cute little young thing. That was my first performance. My second television performance, and I just got a video of it recently. It was really sweet and came out of nowhere, was the Frankie Lane show when he had his weekly television show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a guest on his show when I was 8. And I sang a song called "The Magic of Believing" with him. So we did a couple of duets. And I was on his show, I think, 2 or 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, at that very, very young age.
There you go. And I was telling Dodie before we started the program about kind of not a news segment, but some questions that kind of interspersed throughout the interview. And actually, she just kind of led me into one. I was going to say, who are some of your favorite people to duet with? Obviously, I would think Frankie certainly made an impact on you, or even folks maybe that you'd like to sing with that you maybe just missed out on an opportunity.
I don't remember missing out on an opportunity to do a duet with somebody that I wanted to, so that's a good thing.
Another thing, too, when you were with Dot Records, I thought of that because 2 people come to mind, and correct me if I'm wrong on the first one, that were their really stable acts for a long time. One I thought was Lawrence Welk, and the other one who really was the mainstay of Dot in those days, the 50s and 60s, was Pat Boone. And I thought, I got to ask Dodie if you ever had a chance to, maybe you were on his old Chevy program that he had?
I was, and in fact, it is on YouTube, and it's from 1959 when I did the Pat Boone Chevy show, or Chevy showroom. I can't remember exactly the name. And there I was singing Pink Shoelaces in the cutest little bedroom setting, and I'm talking on the phone to a friend of mine, and I sang Pink Shoelaces. So yes, I was on his show. I was also on Lawrence Welk's show.
Oh, you were? Okay. But see, I'm wondering if some of that was because of the label affiliation. Sometimes, more so in the old days, they would definitely play that up. If someone was a label colleague, believe me, they would do that. But no, that's great. I didn't know about Lawrence Welk, but
I was on his show.
There you go, Myron Florin and a 1 and a 2. There we go.
1 and a 2.
Yes. Dodie Stevens joining us here. DodieStevens.com for more information, and she's going to give us plenty of information today. No doubt. A pleasure to talk to Dodie. And now, of course, tell me a little bit, kind of capsulize from your exposure on the House Party show, then how did you wind up getting a record deal?
Okay, fast forward a little bit. I was taking singing lessons from a teacher for quite a few years, at that age, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, there you go. Well, when I was 11, I was auditioning for, she had me audition for a show called Larry Finley's Strictly Informal, and it was a local television show in the LA area. And I auditioned for it. It happened that her sister, my voice teacher's sister, worked for the TV show, and that's how I got the audition. I auditioned for it. I got on the show. I sang a couple songs. I could not tell you what they were. Don't remember. It's never been brought to my attention what it was, but I was on the show with another artist, a new artist that had just recorded his first record with Crystalette Records, which was an independent label out of Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And he was on the show along with me. It's a little variety show. And the president of the record company was watching the show to see his new artist and saw me on the show and liked what he heard. So he contacted the television station, spoke with my parents, asked if I was recording for anybody, which I was not, and said that he was very interested in signing me to his label, but he needed to find just the right song for me because I was so young. I was 11. So it needed to be very age appropriate. So that was all well and fine, and my parents took down his information. He took down theirs, and that was the end of that. We didn't hear from him until I was almost 13, and he called, said, "Don't know if you remember me or not, but I found, I think, the perfect song for your daughter. It's Tan Shoes and Pink Shoelaces, a little novelty song." And that's how that came about. I went into the studio immediately, recorded it. I didn't like it. It wasn't the kind of song that I was listening to at the time. I was a preteen, almost going into being 13 years of age. And I was listening to rock and roll and, Elvis and all the doo-wop groups that were out there and just all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I wasn't crazy about Pink Shoelaces. But, it wasn't something I was going to turn down and say, no, I don't want to do it. And at that age, you do what you're told to do. And the fact that I was actually going to be signed to a record deal, whoa. So that's how that came about.
There you go. I'm looking here at a photo, speaking of some of the people that you, contemporaries of yours that you were probably later hanging out with and also maybe performing with, an early shot of you with young Bobby Rydell. And
yes, we've done shows together over the years, and of course we did them back then. We also did a couple of photo shoots for magazines at the time. Teen Magazine, Photo Play, I think was a couple of them that we did, and they would set us up together, and we did one at the beach, and we did another one where we were making pizza together in a kitchen somewhere, and of course there was a photographer taking pictures of us, and then there was a story about us, and so yes, I spent time with Bobby and Frankie Avalon and
also
and
Bobby Darin. Tell me a little bit about, because again, it's not often you hear about someone who even came across Bobby Darin. Of course, he's been going for many years now. But tell me a little bit about him from your recollections.
Well, I thought he was wonderful. I loved his music. I liked the way he performed at the time. I remember there was a very slickness about his performance, and
they used to call him the Little Sinatra. They used to call him that. It was
and I can see why exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a show. Oh God, and I hope the title of it comes to me. But anyhow, the format was the artist would go on the show with their newest release. And there was like, I think it was called Jukebox Jury. That was it. See?
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Jukebox Jury. And the jury was different celebrities. And they would vote on this new song. And Bobby was one of them. He was one of the jurors. And every now and then on the show, they would have the artist with their new recording behind the scenes that the jury didn't know about. And so once they told you what they thought of the song, then the artist would come out and they'd meet you, and it would be, I didn't know you were there. And so on this particular song, and it was my follow-up to Pink Shoelaces, which was titled Yes-Siree, on Crystalette.
There you go.
Bobby did not like this song.
No.
At all. Now, as I recall, I think there were 2 or 3 on the jury. The others liked it. Bobby didn't like it. I forgot what he said about it, but it was another novelty with some silly lyrics that, you try to do a follow-up that was very much like your previous hit, so you'd have another hit. Well, he didn't think Yes-Siree was that follow-up.
Yeah, no,
He kind of slammed it. So when I walked out from behind the curtain, it was kind of an awkward moment.
Wow.
But that was my first time to be with Bobby Darin.
There you go. And kind of a celebrity version of like Bandstand's Rate a Record, only more extended version. But then and with the artists in some cases, you said being on set, is pretty good. Dodie Stevens joining us here for the hour on Studio 411. DodieStevens.com for more information. I have to point out, again, Dodie, of course, is speaking to us from California, so can't see the images, but I was looking at a great image, a record that I came across later in life, released on Dot, probably early 60s, which you still hear today, called Merry, Merry Christmas Baby. And again, it's kind of a reworking of Happy Birthday Baby, if I recall.
Yeah, it is. It's the same melody.
Yeah.
It was just a lyric change to accommodate Christmas time.
Yeah, and I love the record. I bought a Christmas compilation probably about 2 decades ago that was out, believe it or not, on vinyl, which I still have to this day. And just some great tunes, again, from that, now the MCA archives, which, all the labels that now they own. And that record, I just think is a great performance by you. And again, I thought it was the actual woman who had done the other one. It's almost a spot on, not an imitation, but I thought it was the same woman that had done the other tune. And then I see, Dodie Stevens. I said, go figure.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
I love singing that song.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I loved Happy Birthday Baby by the Tune Weavers.
There you go, yep. Okay.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved that song. It was very R&B-ish, and I liked that kind of stuff. And I liked singing ballads. I think that was another reason why I wasn't crazy about Pink Shoelaces. So when I was asked to record the Christmas version, I was all over it. I couldn't wait to do it. And, every year it gets played at Christmas time. It's something that gives me more royalties, because I still get royalties for my recordings and, of course, Pink Shoelaces. And I get more royalties for Merry, Merry Christmas Baby.
Oh,
than I do Pink
no
Shoelaces.
kidding! Wow. Now I've asked several performers this, and I think it's more for me to kind of get a grasp on how the whole process works. And I've read up on it a little bit. Royalties are a funny thing, as you well know. I don't need to tell you. A lot of shenanigans go on over the years. Some people get get kind of shafted out of what is deservedly so theirs, and even to this day with downloading and
sure.
streaming.
Well, I think what happened a lot back in my day, in that time of recording, was there were a lot of artists who signed, I guess, away their royalty rights, and the record company would just give them a flat fee for recording the song, going into the studio in the recording session, and this is what they got, and that was it. They didn't get royalties. They just got that flat fee, and it was the record company, the writer, and the publisher.
There you go.
Who got the royalties. But there are also artist royalties. But if you signed away those rights and just got that flat fee, then that was that. You never saw another dime for any sales, record sales. Fortunately, that was not the case for me. I did not sign that, and I did get royalties.
Kind of like the fine print, don't read the fine print, just sign, and that's I think what happened to a lot of successful people.
It did. And especially if they didn't have representation, or they were just green, or they were just so excited that a record company wanted to record them and make them famous, and they were willing to do anything. For me, I did have an attorney and I had a manager, so that kind of stuff didn't take place.
Dodie Stevens joining us for the hour here on Studio 411, dodiestevens.com for more information. Outlaw of the Heart, her most recent CD, along with her daughter Stephanie Stevens, featuring a reworked, newer version of Pink Shoelaces. So again, I heard that song. This is long before you and I connected via phone and internet. All of a sudden I said, driving along and listening, and I'm saying, "Well, what is this song?" And I knew it, but it just had been so long since I had heard it, and then it just seems to kind of crop up every now and again. And then I just people say to me, "Well, how did you get in touch with me?" Or how did you do, there's so much going on that sometimes I forget, but there was that stuck with me, was that what happened to this young lady? And then of course, and I knew the Christmas song, so I knew that there was a track history there. And I said, I gotta find out about this lady, and my lucky I did.
Well, I hope you're lucky that you did.
Absolutely.
I'm lucky that you found me.
Well, I appreciate it.
In our relationship and the communication we've had, and being able to do the show, and your listeners to know a little bit more about what did happen to cute little Dodie Stevens.
There you go. Yeah, a lot, and I'm looking here at a movie poster of probably the third movie you were involved with, a shorter role, but you do get billing here. I think you are seventh, but no harm, no foul. Ben Gazzara, Stuart Whitman, Ray Walston, Vincent Price, Rod Steiger, Broderick Crawford, and actually to the right of your name, Sammy Davis Jr. So I'm looking at a couple of Oscar winners. You're mixing with some big company in Convicts 4 here.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I know. Well, most of those, I can't say all those names, but a lot of those names that you mentioned, we had cameo roles.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as though we were throughout the entire film. For me, I just had one scene, maybe two. I thought it was just one.
Now,
had a couple of lines, and that was it. I played the sister to Ben Gazzara, who was the star of the film. Johnny, it was a true story. He played Johnny Resco, who I believe was in prison for murdering, I don't remember who, but he was in prison, and I played his sister, so my scene was going to visit him in prison, and I was there with our mother and father, and I had this line, and that was it.
Now, Stuart Whitman, am I mistaken, but who was the actor that was with Fabian and Hound Dog Man that you were in?
Stuart Whitman.
It was, yeah. Was that like part of a picture deal, or that just was pure coincidence that you?
I think it was coincidence.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the same
motion
production company.
Yeah,
I think one was, I don't remember where. I don't remember.
Yeah,
no, I don't remember.
I remember.
One was 20th Century Fox. I think that was Hound Dog Man.
Yeah.
With Fabian and Stuart Whitman, and I don't remember. Does it say on the poster?
No, I don't have it with me right now, but no, but I think it wasn't 20th Century. I think it was a
It
smaller.
wasn't. It might have been United Artists.
Yeah, or Allied Artists, one of those.
Yeah.
Probably United. Yeah, yeah. But no, I saw that and I said, boy, that's oddly coincidental. I thought maybe I had another person, but no, Stuart Whitman, fine actor
Yeah,
in
and
his
he
day.
did have a role with throughout the movie.
There you go. In addition, of course, you were telling me off air the other day about you were in a movie with Frankie Avalon, who, of course, in the early '60s, even prior to the Beach Party movies, was very hot with a pretty successful movie career. And you even did a cartoon with him.
Yeah, a feature, an animated feature film with him called Alakazam the Great. And Alakazam was a little monkey. He was a little hero, and he wore this cape like Superman. And I played his girlfriend, Dee Dee the monkey. And it wasn't my speaking voice. It was just my singing voice. So whenever Dee Dee would sing in the movie, it was my voice that you heard.
There you go. I find it eerily coincidental that when Frankie did the Beach Party movies, his girlfriend was named Dee Dee. So you know what? Had you stuck around a while, you might have been Annette instead of Annette.
Oh, God, wouldn't that have been wonderful? I had such a crush on him, like every other teenage girl did. Frankie Avalon and Fabian were my biggest heartthrob.
And of course, with
And Bobby, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, quite a trio there. They're still in some way, shape, or form out there performing. And I know Bobby had some health issues, but we've tried to get him on the program. We continue to try to work at that, and he's rebounded nicely, I hear. And good to see that they're all still very active. You know, of course.
Well, the show is called The Golden Boys, and I did a couple of those shows when I was singing background for Frankie Avalon. And so I was definitely on the show. And it was really cute because there I was as one of his 3 background singers. And of course, he would introduce the band, and he'd introduce his background singers. And when he came to me, and at the time I was using my real name, which was Jerry Stevens, he introduced me as Jerry Stevens, and then he said, you might not know this, but, and then he told them about me recording Pink Shoelaces as Dodie Stevens, and then he called me down from my position of background singer, and we did the song together.
There you go. Nice, nice.
Yeah, so it was very well done, and it was fun being a part of those 3 guys' lives again.
And you talked about this, of course, later on. You took a little bit of a break to have a child, got married, and life goes on. You took Stephanie, I understand, then moved back to the West Coast after, what was it, Missouri you were down in?
Yeah, right out of Springfield, Missouri is where she was born and where I lived for a couple years.
Yeah. And then got, as you said, back into the business, doing some recording work, obviously. We've even got a clip of a country hit you had with a kind of a signature answer song to the first edition Kenny Rogers, Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. No, wait a minute, is that the right one?
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, and we'll show a clip of that later on, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And actually, I'm going to quiz you as to, don't answer now, who wrote the song, because I was fascinated when I saw that.
I don't know who wrote
Yeah, no, I'll tell you when we get to
because I
that.
don't know.
Yeah, no, it was funny because I was just reading about one of the gentlemen who was kind of a minor artist in his own right, and then the other gentleman kind of had a little bit of a stammer. Well, I'll give you a hint, but we'll talk more about that later. Dodie Stevens joining us here on Studio 411 for the hour. And again, DodieStevens.com for more information. You were talking about before about working with Frankie. Then you kind of developed a second career as working with people like Loretta Lynn, Boz Scaggs. Jump in there with any anecdotes about them. Of course, 12 years with Mac Davis. So, and let's not forget one of my favorites, working for a brief time with Sergio Mendes in Brazil. At that point would have been, what, 77?
No, he called his group 77. With each decade, he changed the number.
Mm-hmm.
He started out with 66, then it went to 77, and I think there was an 88 and a 99, and I don't know what it is now. But when I was with him, it was Brazil 77, but it was in 1972 through 73 that I was with the
Gotcha.
group.
And he actually, I found an old an old recording, but new to CD. There was actually the original incarnation before he went to A&M was actually Brazil 65. So
It was?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I didn't know that. I was like,
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I thought he started as Brazil 66 with Mais Que Nada and Fool on the Hill and
Scarborough Fair and
I don't remember.
oh yeah.
There were so many going out of my head.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I loved singing those songs, Larry. I loved it. It was one of the highlights of my entire career was when I sang with Sergio in Brazil 77. I loved the music. I loved being able to dance around because, Sergio wanted you to have that hip movement and do that kind of Latin dance when we sang.
Oh, still does. I saw him, as I told you off air, about 10 years ago, and let me tell you, nothing's changed.
I know.
They just may not be quite as uniformly dressed as perhaps in your day. As more of a fashion statement. I think now it's a little more relaxed because, of course, he's older.
In fact, I saw him at the Hollywood Bowl about 2 years ago, and I was surprised to see the difference in attire that the girls dressed in. And I was also surprised to see that rather than having just the two girls with him, because it was always Sergio in the middle on his piano, and the two girls, one on each side of him, dressed to the nines. We were dressed uniformly and very Brazilian and Mardi Gras-like outfits, to see that it was him kind of in the middle, but a little bit more off to the side. And then there were three backup singers that were on a riser a little bit to the other side of the stage. Mm-hmm. And then one other lady that was very close to him, and that was also one of the girls that I was singing with back in 1972.
Wow.
So it had changed. Everybody wore their own stuff. And I missed it. I missed the Mardi Gras-ish, Brazilian-ish, flashy attire. I really missed it, but
I think it's called cut down on production costs.
Yeah, I guess.
And also in the early '80s when he had Rainbow's End and he had Never Gonna Let You Go, I think was the name of the tune. He was still with A&M. He had there was also a couple of male singers in the mix too. Yeah,
right.
So it was a pleasure to to be able to see him, and obviously in your case to be able to work with them. And you were on 2 or 3 of the albums. One of them was a live album, I believe.
One was called Live at the Greek, mm-hmm. which is the Greek theater here in the Hollywood area. And then the other one was Primal Roots, and that was all Brazilian music. We did all the songs that we did was in Portuguese.
Wow.
And I had to learn everything phonetically.
There you go.
Because I was only the only American in the group when I joined them. So everybody else was from Latin America, and so most of the time I was in the dark because they were always talking in Portuguese, and I didn't know what they were saying. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they were saying something not good about me. I don't know. I don't think so. We all seem to get along very well.
See, if I was there, I could have been your interpreter.
Do you speak Portuguese?
Yeah, well, I used to. Yeah, I'm born here, but my lineage is
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I loved it. I just loved it.
Good stuff. We were just looking at a couple of photos, even the one we're looking at now, which is kind of a blown-up version of the album cover. I've asked guests this that are in the music profession, and a lot of them tell me, oh yeah, it's not cheap. As the outfits, the gowns, the different things that we see you performing in. Again, that's got to take a lot of work and a lot of effort to put that together, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, when I do shows now, the doo-wop shows, I just get to dress the way I want to, and it's always very stage appropriate. And but it's very much me, and it's very comfortable. I tell my students that that when they're on stage, two things to keep in mind with your attire: comfortable shoes, and the other thing is comfortable wardrobe. Make sure that it's not anything that's binding, something that's going to take your attention away from you singing your song.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not aching feet, not good.
Yeah.
Or, an outfit that's just so tight in the waist that it doesn't allow for your diaphragm to expand as it needs to when you breathe in and out. You don't want a dress or a top where the strap's going to keep falling down, or you're going to be thinking about, oh, is it going to fall down a little bit too much? Or, you don't want that. Who was it at the Super Bowl? Was it Janet Jackson?
Oh, yes, yeah, with Justin Timberlake.
I mean, those things happen.
Yeah.
When I was singing background with Boz Scaggs, one of the other background singers I was with, we had really great outfits, and she it just happened. It just, the top kind of fell down as we were singing. She didn't realize it until way later, and those things happen. So, back to my initial reason for, you always have to have comfortable shoes and comfortable attire. So no surprises.
I was going to say the shoes, some of the shoes I see that are being worn even by non-performers, I don't know how they walk.
I don't either. And the ones that perform in them, I don't know.
After
really
about 20 or 30 years of performing.
I know that they can do it much better if they weren't in those shoes.
Sure. After about 20 or 30 years of wearing that, I think from what I've seen evidence of, the foot takes on a whole different look, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a whole other form.
Yeah, it's like kind of with the heel rising way up on the end, and I'm thinking, that's not too comfortable, not too comfortable.
No, it's just not. And I know that the artist who's wearing them has got to be, their focus has got to be on those feet, on those shoes. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Unless they've got Novocaine or something in their feet where they can't feel any kind of sensation. I mean, and I'm not saying when I get on stage I'm wearing flats. That's not the case.
Right.
I do wear heels, but I wear heels that are not going to make my arch be to where it's going to be uncomfortable. It's just going to be a nice look, go with my outfit, and I can move and dance without any obstructions whatsoever.
There you go. Dodie Stevens joining us here for the hour on Studio 411, talking about her lengthy career, and DodieStevens.com for more information. And lo and behold, I see the original 45 here for Pink Shoelaces. A couple of things that I read, and you expound on briefly if you would. One, someone recently, an interview you did, referred to you in this song as kind of the first rap singing or rap song. Do you recall that?
You know, I've had somebody bring that to my attention in the last few years. I had never thought of it that way, but when they presented it to me, at that time I went, you're absolutely right. It was the first rap song because the song, for the most part, was just talked, all the verses. Now, I got a guy, and his name is Dudley. He's my guy, and I love him truly. He's not good looking, heaven knows, but I'm wild about his crazy clothes. Now, that's talking. That's rapping.
Sure.
You rap in
right.
a rhythm, and rap is just talking in rhythm and rhyming, and that's it. Then in the chorus is when I actually sang.
All we need to get is the turntable. All we need is to get the turntable where they, kind of like make that little noise here, and we could perform that right now, re-release it again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking here at another contemporary of yours, Jimmy Clanton, who of course was big in the late 50s. His career was kind of interrupted a little by military service, but him at one of your more recent performances, again, you dressed to the nines, and you have much interaction with Jimmy. How's he doing these days?
I have not spoken to him in years. Mm-hmm. We did a doo-wop show together in I want to say 2009, I think it was. And that's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he's doing. I hope well.
Well, we'll have to get him on this show. How's
Let's
that?
do,
Well,
yeah.
we'll have a doo-wop thing. We'll get a couple of people here in studio, and then we'll do a Skype, and we'll do a phone in. We'll have a regular reminiscence with a bunch of you and your contemporaries.
Yeah, wouldn't that be divine?
Absolutely. In our remaining moments, a couple of things I know are near and dear to you I wanted to talk about. One is both you and your daughter are very proactive as far as getting the message out about the problem, that age-old problem that seems to be more focused now, of bullying. Tell me a little bit about, again, any experiences from back in your childhood, or
Sure.
how
I don't know
did
who hasn't been bullied.
Yeah.
But back then, when I was in school, elementary, middle school, high school, it was innocent bullying. It was the kind of bullying where, like for me, I was always very thin, and I had very thin legs. So they'd call me chicken legs. Big deal. When I was in elementary school, there was a book that we had to read. I think it was in the second grade, called Geraldine the Cow. And my name was Geraldine Pasquale. So kids would, make fun of me. Oh, Geraldine the cow, here comes Geraldine the cow. Of course, I was skinny, which was silly.
Right.
But, or, cutting in front of you in line at the cafeteria or whatever. It was that kind of bullying. Nothing really much more than that. But, of course, bullying and how it has evolved, and online bullying, in addition to what's going on in the schools themselves, it's become a very dangerous thing. No longer is it innocent. And so as I often do, and I certainly have, especially in the last 10 or 12 years, I find myself writing about current events that affect me emotionally, things that disturb me, things that I don't understand it. And so I have to write about it. I'm compelled to write about it. And bullying was one of them. And we wrote this song called I'm Not a Bully. And we were singing it in some schools locally. And I just wanted to get that message out there. And we were doing pretty good until the school stopped having any kind of music for their assemblies. They felt it wasn't important anymore, so then that put an end to that, and we couldn't go in the schools anymore with our song.
Right. A lot of
But
that.
that's how I'm Not a Bully came about.
A lot of that too can be budgetary constraints, or again, it's
It was all about that.
Or one person says, "Well, I'm offended by that." Again, Lord knows why. It could be any topic or any subject matter. But I just heard recently today, I think there was a school somewhere here in New York or Long Island where there's a pending lawsuit because apparently someone was bullied. Became nearly suicidal, and then the lawsuit contends that the school system did nothing about it, and of course that plays against what is supposed to be happening nowadays. But so again, you'd like to think things are better, but sometimes too with social media and also with technology, some of that is exacerbated even further.
Oh yes, I agree with that.
Another subject too, and I digress here. While you were talking about the bullying thing and the thin Dodie Stevens, not that she isn't thin now, trust me, but there was a shot of you from your days with Sergio Mendes. Kind of, you had like a Marianne or Ginger outfit on, and I would say, you look pretty slender to me. So I don't think.
Yeah, I was slender. I've been blessed in that sense for most of my life, except maybe a year. I always remained trim. I exercise and I eat well, and I think very positive, and so all that stuff kind of works together. But there was 1 year, and it was right after my daughter was born, that I put on about 20, maybe, a little over 20 pounds. and it's because I continued to eat the way I did when I was pregnant, and I never really gained that much weight. I ate a lot when I was pregnant, but I only put on about 14, maybe 15 pounds, and when Stephanie was born, and she was just a little thing, she wasn't much more than 5 pounds when she was born, I went right back to my initial weight, but I kept on eating because I still had cravings and whatnot, and boy, did the pounds come on me.
Yeah, it must have been that Missouri cooking down.
Not sure what it was, but I am telling you, I put on, like I said, 20, maybe 25 pounds for that 1 year, but I slowly took it off, and I did it rather than going on this crash diet. I just did it slowly, changed my eating habits, exercised a little more, made sure I didn't have any of those tempting foods in the house, and then slowly the weight came off, and I kept it off, and I have to this day.
There you go.
I maintain about anywhere between 105 to 115.
There you go. Well,
there it is.
There's a revelation. Most women would slap me if I asked them what their weight was. I didn't even have that on my question list. But
I'm volunteering that information.
In our remaining couple of minutes here with Dodie Stevens at DodieStevens.com for more information. You have composed, still in the finishing process, but quickly tell the viewers a song again that obviously hits close to here because again being in the tri-state Connecticut area, song about the Newtown tragedy, I think also probably combined with the San Bernardino tragedy, just a lot of these crazy, events that have happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me rewind a little bit for when the Sandy Hook tragedy hit, moved me beyond description. And there I was writing about the song, about the tragedy in memory of all the victims, the 20 children and the 6 adults. And I wrote a song called We the Children, and I mailed copies of the CD to all the family members of the victims. It was just my way of maybe helping them heal, maybe making some kind of sense out of the senselessness of it. But I did that. Now fast forward to the song that I recently wrote called When, and that was written the day after the Paris terror attacks. Mm-hmm. Once again, I was just so disturbed by it. It was one of those things that the question was, here we go again, when will it end? When is this madness going to stop? When are we going to be able to live peacefully and harmoniously with one another, respect one another's differences, but still come together to put an end to all of this that continues to happen, from the Twin Towers to the Boston Marathon, the bombings in Beirut, the attacks in Mumbai, of course the Paris terror attack, and then I think a week after that, if that, we had the attacks in San Bernardino, which is only about an hour and a half from me. It just goes on and on and on and on, and nothing seems to be done about it because it keeps happening. So I just had to write this song, compelled to write it. There are some peace organizations that have heard the song locally and also internationally. I hope it somehow makes a difference.
There you go.
My heart cries, and it breaks over and over again.
For more information, DodieStevens.com. I know as you mentioned, the various songs you've talked about at one point or another can be found on there. By the way, the answer to the trivia question, the song, the follow-up to the Kenny Rogers song, written by Vic Dana and Mel Tillis.
Was it?
Yeah, amazing. So I'll have to send you the copy of that. But in the
Well,
meantime,
Vic Dana.
yeah,
Here's an interesting tidbit.
yeah.
Vic Dana was that new artist on that show that I was on.
There you go. What a great way to segue into our song here.
That.
There you go. We thank Dodie Stevens for joining us here on this episode of Studio 411. DodieStevens.com. And right now, while Dodie and I hang out a little bit, we're going to listen to a track from the recent CD, Outlaw of the Heart, and it's called Magdalena. Dodie, thank you for joining us. Hang in there with us, and we hope to have you back on again real soon.
Oh, I love to be back. Thank you so much, Larry. I've loved it.
And we thank you for joining us on this episode of Studio 411. You guys have a great day, and here's Dodie and Stephanie Stevens singing Magdalena.
Once upon a time, the fire burned hot, but a handful of ashes is all that I got. I was deaf, dumb, and blind then, but now I'm not. Used to close my eyes when I saw him flirt, and I tell myself that it really don't hurt. But now there ain't no denying all the stories that I heard. Magdalena, Magdalena, I know it's true. Magdalena, Magdalena, my man's been with you. 'Cause I know he's been cheating, a lying and a stealing, running around all over town with you. Magdalena, Magdalena, when I found out the truth, I nearly lost my head.